Mr. Chair, your next speaker is Cody Davis. We have a registered speaker that is ceding time to Mr. Davis, Alexa Anderson. Mr. Davis, you have 6 minutes.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name's Cody Davis, and I'd like to address a fundamental issue with this proposal for Corkscrew Grove East Village, which is that it does not meet the intent of the RLSA framework it relies on. The Rural Land Stewardship Area was designed to allow flexibility only in exchange for something better than conventional development, specifically compact, walkable, mixed-use communities that reduce sprawl and function differently from the typical suburban patterns seen throughout the county. But the staff report itself undermines that premise. It describes this project as, quote, compact, suburban-style development similar to many of the PUDs located in the urban area of Collier County. This is not a minor characterization. It's an admission that this project resembles the exact development pattern the RLSA framework was created to avoid and replace. Despite that, the project is requesting numerous and in some cases extraordinary deviations, 16 altogether, some of which directly undermine the stated intent of the RLSA. For example, 8.1 Deviation 1 raises the per location cap for non-residential uses from 15K to 30K square feet. That scale of use isn't compatible with a walkable, neighborhood-oriented mixed-use village. It encourages regional draw and car dependency. Further, the language of the deviation is unclear on whether it applies only to amenity centers or whether it could be used to build other non-residential uses in the future. It's also notably ambiguous on whether the deviation applies only to the per location LDC cap of 15K square feet or whether it also applies to the per use cap of 3K square feet. The limits on the nature of the amenity centers will be dramatically different whether the broad or strict interpretation is applied, but if this isn't made clear now, staff will likely default to the broad interpretation, which further increases the potential for regional draw as a result of the deviation. 8.2 Deviation 1 dramatically alters parking requirements to make the village center even more car-centric and regionally oriented. The applicant states in their request for this deviation, quote, to remain viable in the marketplace, the village center commercial uses need to be accessible to and convenient to motorists from Corkscrew Road or State Road 82. This statement from the applicant themselves directly acknowledges that this project does not comply with the intent of the RLSA to promote walkability and internal capture. Additionally, market viability is not a legitimate justification for deviating from the law, especially in ways that harm the future of the county. And when looking at the actual layout, the disconnect is apparent. The village center, which is supposed to be the focal point of walkability, is located across a state road for a large portion of residents, including the entirety of the affordable housing context zone. It is incredible to describe that arrangement as walkable, compact, mixed-use development just by the physical form alone. Finally, I want to address the claim of fiscal neutrality. That conclusion is based on a static, build-out-only snapshot decades into the future that doesn't account for the timing of costs, the financing of infrastructure, or long-term service obligations. The peer review even plainly states that the fiscal neutrality analysis may become obsolete. In other words, the public will be required to fund roads, services, and facilities years and even decades before the projected tax base fully materializes, if ever. The peer review of the economic assessment acknowledges this fact. Quote, it's important to recognize that fiscal neutrality relies on accurate projections, often 20 years or more into the future. Because the model used is a static snapshot of build-out, the analysis does not even attempt to assess whether these long-term obligations will be met by long-term tax revenue on an ongoing basis, and this all assumes that the figures provided by the applicant are correct in the first place, because those figures weren't independently verified by the peer reviewer. Further, the model does not analyze the fiscal impact on wastewater and water, even though the development's effect on the Immokalee Water Sewer District's pipe connections per mile will have a direct impact on the rates that are paid on those utilities. This is a clear violation of Chapter 4, Section 8, subsection 7K of the county's Land Development Code, which plainly states, quote, an economic assessment shall be prepared and submitted as part of the SRA designation application package. The analysis shall consider the following public facilities and services: potable water, wastewater. Without a fiscal neutrality assessment that accounts for this development's impact on the pipe network, it will be effectively impossible for the Immokalee Water Sewer District to set rates in a way that is just and equitable, as they are legally required to do. the hypothetical one-time connection fees do not account for the recurring maintenance costs. So while the project may appear fiscally neutral, in a hypothetical future snapshot that assumes no change in known variables decades into the future and illegally excludes major utilities, that is not at all the same as demonstrating that it will be fiscally neutral in reality. This proposal relies on the flexibility granted to RLSA development, but doesn't deliver the defining characteristics that justify that flexibility. It functions as conventional suburban development while operating under a framework intended to prevent exactly that outcome. For these reasons, I urge the Commission to take a close look at whether this project truly complies with the intent of the RLSA, not just its procedural form, and to be skeptical of recommending approval for projects that don't have any recurring fiscal accountability mechanism, such as a look-back provision, because without it, the county is essentially signing a blank check to the developer. Thank you.
Thank you.